हाँ, तो कल हमने सेक्शन 10 to 13 तक देखा ऑफ IGST एक्ट, जहाँ पे भी कवर्ड प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई. टुडे विल डू टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई क्विकली. सो टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई क्यों करते हैं? Why do we learn time of supply? Is basically to understand from the businessman's perspective about the right time of paying tax to the government. Okay, not only paying tax but also filing returns so that appropriately things can happen on time. अभी इंडियन टैक्सेशन सिस्टम के हिसाब से when it comes to GST, it has to be filed every month. So on every month, whatever purchases, sales you have done, उसका returns हमें file करना पड़ता है very next month में. So यहाँ पर वो appropriation and precision के लिए what we need to have is a very good idea about time of supply. So when you know the time of supply, you can actually figure out कौन से month में appropriately आपका sales हुआ था, जिसके हिसाब से आप tax को लागू कर सकते हो. Fine? So that is what is being discussed in this particular slide. इसके आगे हम जाते हैं सेक्शन 31 में, where we are going to study the basic mechanism of understanding an invoice. So when you talk about invoice कैसे या invoice बनाने का सही टाइम वो अपने को बताता है सेक्शन 31 of CGST. So they have here classified transactions into three types, supplies into three types: normal supply, continuous, and goods sent on approval basis. So normal is basically a simple kind of a transaction जहाँ पे आपका goods move हो रहा है या तो आपके locality में या आपके business area में आके आपका customer आपसे आके goods खरीदने वाला है आपसे. So when you talk about, so whenever there is movement of goods, so the right time to issue an invoice is before or at the time of removing your goods. तो जैसे आप goods को आपके godown से निकालते हो for sending it to your customer, that becomes the most appropriate time of giving your invoice. Again, when it comes to sending goods across, तो जो आपका ट्रांसपोर्ट एजेंसी होता है उसके थ्रू से ही आप गुड्स सेंड करते हो आपके कस्टमर को. सो गुड्स भी चला जाता है और इनवॉइस भी चला जाता है. सो दैट इटसेल्फ इज अ वेरी क्लियर कट इंडिकेशन that when you are sending your goods across, that time pe you are supposed to give your invoice. Just give me a minute. Yeah, so that's the first thing. So when you go to the next part, when there is no movement of goods, मतलब आपका एक शॉप है, आपका एक गोडाउन है, वहां पर आकर एक बंदा आपसे गुड्स खरीद के चला जा रहा है. So obviously the place where you are handing over the goods to your customer becomes your the time when you are handing over the goods or when you are making it deliverable to that person becomes the time of supply. So here when there is no movement of goods, it's before or at the time of delivery or made available there too. So जो टाइम पे आप सामान उनके हाथ में दे रहे हो वो हो जाएगा आपका place of supply. Coming to continuous supply, this can be somewhat like power, gas, water. Now again, power, gas comes under services, but if we talk about goods, it can be some sort of materials or any sort of equipments or any such tools which you are using in your business premises on a continuous basis. Fine, some kind of a packed stuff or anything it can be. So जहाँ पर वो चीज का continuous supply हो रहा है, तो here now what can happen is यहाँ पे हर एक supply पे आपको bill नहीं आएगा. Fine, let me talk about water or maybe food or chai, anything as such. So when these things come to our workplace, when these things come to our workplace, हम हर एक डिलीवरी पे पेमेंट नहीं करने वाले ना. हर डिलीवरी में हमें पैसे हमें इनवॉइस देगा सामने वाला पर्सन. फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ आई एम buying water, okay, bottles of water. So in a month of 30 days or in a month where we have 4 weeks, ऐसा हमारा सिस्टम होगा जहाँ पे 1 week में 2 times the person is going to come and drop the bottle at your office, right? So every time when he'll come and drop the bottle, I'm not going to pay him, nor he is going to give me an invoice. जब ये सब चीज खत्म हो जाएगा, और जब ये सब चीज खत्म हो जाएगा, probably that time he may give me an invoice, and accordingly we can have the settlement getting done. But here, what we need to understand is when your supply is totally continuous, we need to see आप जब इनवॉइस रेस करते हो यहाँ पर आपको देखना पड़ता है आपने पे कब किया है पैसा. ऑलराइट, सो बिफोर और एट द टाइम ऑफ each such statement which you are making in your books of accounts or the payment which you are making to your supplier, right? So accordingly ये डेट के हिसाब से we are going to find out or we are going to draw the time when the invoice can actually be raised. Then when goods are sent on approval basis. So this is again a very simple concept, that is whenever goods are sent to a person, जहाँ पर आपने goods sell नहीं किया, आपने सिर्फ goods को send किया है, सामने वाला goods को जांच पड़ताल करेगा, and then he is going to tell you, revert you whether you want the goods or not, right? So that is what is approval. Now when the person approves the good, that is what is called as supply. Fine. So you can see the first point out there, before or at the time of supply. So जिस दिन बंदे ने goods को accept कर लिया, आपको note दे दिया या acceptance notice दे दिया, वो हो जाएगा आपका date of supply. या तो 6 महीना, सरकार ने, गवर्नमेंट ने 6 months दिया हुआ अपने को to consider it as approved case. So when 6 months के अंदर we should get an approval, but if 6 months के अंदर approval नहीं आ रहा, then that 6 months के अंदर या 6 month जैसे खत्म हो जाएगा, आपको invoice raise करना पड़ेगा. But again, later on it will depend on the scenario whether the person wants the goods or not. If he doesn't want, then you may have to issue debit credit notes accordingly. And उसके हिसाब से transaction को आप reverse कर सकते हो. So coming to this most important point of time of supply, section 12, subsection 2, where we are going to learn it for goods. See, when you talk about goods, okay, other than composition dealers, जो बाकी जो भी forward charge mechanism के dealers होते हैं, इनके case में we are going to consider two dates very importantly. One is going to be your date of invoice and the other one is going to be your due date. अभी due date जो है वो हमें यहाँ पे automatically पता चल जाता है, right? Due date जो है वो हमें यहाँ पे automatically पता चल जाता है as per section 31. So this particular due date, that is the date by when your invoice was supposed to be issued, वो या तो जिस दिन the day when you have actually raised the invoice, दोनों में से जो डेट पहले आता है, that is going to be your time of supply. All right. Now if you see the third point closely here, that is date of receipt of payment, जहाँ पे एक star भी डाला होगा, and you all can see last नीचे सबसे नीचे irrelevant for non-composition dealers. So this point is applicable only for composition dealers or people those who have registered under composition scheme. But उसके अलावा जो एक normal person है जो business carry out कर रहा है under forward charge mechanism, for that person the date of payment is not to be considered. This was again applied as per notification which came in November 2017 from the GST authority, and ये rule के हिसाब से इन लोग ने clear cut section दिया हुआ है, section 12 subsection 2 के बारे में बात किया हुआ है, and they have disregarded this point of payment. तो payment का part वहाँ पे बिल्कुल नहीं आने वाला. In your exams also you all may find couple of I think in your very own book you all might have find this particular date being involved. So don't consider that date. That can be some sort of a printing error or probably some past old mistake या previous year to year, मतलब last to last जो first print edition हुआ रहेगा उसका mistake भी हो सकता है. So just don't go through that. We have solved couple of sums in class. Follow that. And यहाँ पर सिर्फ ये दो date consider करना. एक हो जाएगा आपका date of invoice जिस दिन आपने इनवॉइस इशू किया हुआ है, और दूसरा हो जाएगा आपका डेट जिस दिन आपका इनवॉइस इशू होने वाला था as per section 31. Now coming to this point, that is reverse charge mechanism, subsection 3. Now reverse charge mechanism is simply a case where goods are sold but invoice is not drawn, right? Because the person who's selling the goods is not a registered person, correct? It can be an agriculturist, all right, and this person is selling goods to another person who is registered under GST. तो जो बंदा registered है, जो goods purchase कर रहा है, he is going to draw an invoice, all right. He is going to prepare a self invoice, all right, and he is going to pay tax to the government directly. So जो seller है goods का, वो tax pay नहीं करने वाला है यहाँ पे. The taxpayer is the buyer himself. So anyway, जो goods खरीदता है या service लेता है, that person is anyway the tax bearer, fine. But in normal cases or in your forward charge mechanism, the person who's selling the goods is the taxpayer. क्योंकि जो customer है, right, वो tax का money, tax का पैसा along with goods का पैसा hand over करेगा seller को. Seller जो है इसमें से goods का पैसा अपने पास रख के tax का पैसा दे देगा government को. This is forward charge. What happens in reverse charge is the customer is only going to give the money of goods to the seller, but the amount of tax is directly paid by the customer to the government. Fine. So it's kind of a direct tax, right? So यहाँ पर customer directly tax pay कर देता है government को. So we call it as reverse charge mechanism. Under reverse charge mechanism, obviously, if you are dealing with an agriculturist, the agriculturist is not going to give you any particular invoice, stamped invoice नहीं देने वाला GST number के साथ, तो registered भी नहीं होगा पहली बार. So यहाँ पे we are going to consider number one, that is the date when you have received the goods. Number two, the date when the payment is entered in the books or payment is deducted from your bank accounts, any one of the two, whichever comes earlier. Or this is a separate provision given as due to some extra period given to the buyer, that is date immediately following 30 days or apparent or the very next, that is 31st day from the date of issue of invoice or any legal document supporting the transaction. See, when we talk about agricultural cases, जहाँ पर रूरल से रूरल एरिया में आप किसी के साथ डील करते हो, तो यहाँ पे दो वे होता है, राइट? एक वे कि आप गुड्स सीधा ले लो, कुछ राइटिंग में लो मत, एंड खुद के हिसाब से गुड्स जिस दिन आपने रिसीव किया है वो डेट के हिसाब से टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई रिकॉर्ड करके गुड्स आई मीन एंट्री पास कर दो, दैट इज वन थिंग. The other thing can be to get something in writing from the agriculturist. If the agriculturist is so illiterate that if he cannot even give in writing, then you can give a letter or you can give a piece of paper where written content कि इतना इतना goods लिया है उनसे इतना इतना value का, and उस पे उनका अंगूठा छाप लेकर भी कर सकते. That will also be treated as a proper document. वो document only thing is file रहना चाहिए, file होना चाहिए आपके files में with a proper given date. And वो date से we are going to come down to 31st day. So if at all today, what is आज का date? Today's 3rd April, right? So 4th April onwards, we are going to start one by one. And the very 31st day, we are going to consider it as that particular date, extended date, which is given by the government to us. All right? So fingers का इस्तेमाल करें, right? 1, 2, 3. So your date counting will be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, blah, blah, blah. And जहाँ पे 31 आ जाएगा, वो डेट हो जाएगा आपका ये 3rd पॉइंट वाला डेट, राइट? सो दीज 3 डेट्स यू विल हैव टू एंटर व्हाइल डूइंग योर सम्स, एंड तीनों में से जो सबसे पहले आ रहा है ऑटोमेटिकली वो हो जाएगा आपका प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई, सॉरी टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई, राइट? सो simply speaking, what will be given is the date when this invoice is issued, वो दिया जाएगा आपको, उसके साथ साथ पेमेंट का डेट दिया जाएगा आपको, और जिस दिन गुड्स मिले या मिला या जिस दिन गुड्स रिसीव हो वो डेट दिया जाएगा आपको. So you'll have to simply make a table. Number 1, serial number. Number 2, date of receipt of goods. Number 3, your date of payment. Payment के दो clauses होंगे. One will be date when payment is recorded in the books, date, and the other one will be date when payment actually got deducted from your bank statement. दोनों में से याद रखना जो पहले हुआ है हमें वो यूज करना. And the last one will be your 31st day from the date of issuing of such invoice. तो वहाँ पर वो invoice का date लिखना, and उसके बाद में one column for the 31st day. And in the next column, you will have to write your time of supply. I mean, जितने भी columns आपने डाले हैं, उसमें जितने भी values आप dates आपने डाले हैं, सबसे earliest date जो आ रहा है, सबसे पहला वाला date, वो date हो जाएगा आपका time of supply. And then in the last column, you'll have to mention the reason also. What will be your reason? So if your date of receipt of goods is earliest, then just write date of receipt of goods. That's it, right? If you find that your payment entered in the bank statement is the earliest, then your reason will be date of payment entered in the books. That's it. Utna one line wala reason hi chahiye. I don't want the whole regulation and rule to be written, right? So just one line explanation, and that is more than enough, more than sufficient, right? So that is about time of supply for reverse charge. So I feel there should not be any confusion in solving sums of this reverse charge mechanism. एग्जाम में अगर रिवर्स चार्ज मैकेनिज्म का पर्टिकुलरली सम आता भी है तो इट विल बी अ वेरी सिंपल 4 टाइप क्वेश्चन बेस्ड, लाइक वन होल सेट विल बी फॉर 2 मार्क्स, करेक्ट? तो मेनली आपको क्या फाइंड आउट करना है यहाँ पे? टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई, जिसका 1 मार्क होगा, एंड द अदर मार्क विल बी फॉर गिविंग मी द रीजन कि बेस्ड ऑन व्हाट, बेस्ड ऑन विच ऑफ दीज 3 पॉइंट्स, ये डेट ऑफ रिसीट ऑफ गुड्स पॉइंट 1 या डेट ऑफ पेमेंट्स तो पॉइंट 2 या पॉइंट 3, ये तीनों में से कौन से पॉइंट के बेसिस में आपने टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई एक्चुअली फाइंड आउट किया है, ये इसका जस्टिफिकेशन चाहिए और कुछ नहीं. तो उसके लिए कॉलम ऐड कर देना है, एंड योर वर्क विल बी सॉर्टेड एज सिंपल, राइट? Then we come to the next part. This also you all can expect in your exam. You all maybe one question or something ऐसा आ सकता है. अगर आया तो again I'm not so sure it may come, but voucher for goods. So what is voucher basically? Voucher is something where you don't need to pay money, but you can exchange goods for something. You can exchange goods for a voucher or some sort of a document, right? That document is what is a voucher is. So voucher दो प्रकार के होते हैं, एक होता है सिंगल पर्पस और एक है जनरल पर्पस. See, single purpose vouchers are basically for buying one particular type of a commodity. So, समझो if you go to say Big Bazaar, okay, and now Big Bazaar is a big retail shop, right? It's like a general store. You will find departmental store. You will find everything. Okay. अभी Big Bazaar में you are having a voucher where you can buy only grocery. Fine. Grocery में you can buy rice, dal, sugar, those things. So that becomes a single purpose voucher, right? On the other hand, if you're getting a voucher where you can buy anything, all right, whatever you want to buy, you can buy. That becomes a general purpose voucher. So when it's a single purpose voucher, your voucher is only for a particular item and it is identifiable. आपको पता चल जाएगा कि voucher आप क्या खरीदने वाले हो. But general में आपको ये पता नहीं चलने वाला है कि कौन सा goods हमारा customer लेने वाला है करके. So here your time of supply is definitely going to differ. So when it's a single purpose voucher, your time of supply is going to be the date of issue of that particular voucher. So जिस दिन आपने voucher issue किया हुआ है, obviously whenever a voucher is issued, there is a date and time stamp which comes on it, right? So ये date के हिसाब से हम time of supply count करने वाले हैं. लेकिन general purpose voucher में जिस दिन आप वो voucher को redeem करोगे shop में जाके, वो हो जाएगा आपका time of supply. तो समझो I got a voucher from say Adidas, okay? And Adidas has given me this voucher exclusively for buying shoes. Okay, so it has to come under single purpose vouchers, right? Correct. So now the date when I have received this voucher becomes the time of supply for Adidas. Supplier कौन है यहाँ पे goods का? Adidas, right? Buyer कौन है यहाँ पे goods का? मैं हूँ. Time of supply और मेरा कोई लेना देना नहीं. I have nothing to do with time of supply. Who has to do with time of supply? The seller of the goods, the dealer, that is Adidas. So for Adidas, time of supply will be the date of issue of that particular voucher. I hope this is also getting clear, right? There's no need to check into this much. We can directly go to services. Services के लिए भी we are going to check through in section 31 and services maybe now many feel services are a bit more complicated, but practically no. अगर goods का section आपका clear है and if you all are very clear about this rule 47, sorry, this section 31, rule 47, then things are going to become very easy for you, right? So यहाँ पर हमें mainly एक चीज याद रखना है कि आपने invoice जो है वो time पर issue किया है या नहीं किया. Fine. So let's go with forward charge first. So forward charge is basically in the forward charge, your appropriate time or the due date of issuing an invoice is either before provision of service or within 30 days. दोनों दो डेट दिया हुआ है. ये दोनों डेट के अंदर, इसके अंदर आपका इनवॉइस इशू हो जाना चाहिए एनी विच वेज, मतलब मैक्स टू मैक्स. ऑलराइट, सी दीस पॉइंट्स व्हिच आर मेंशन्ड इन सेक्शन 31 ना, यहाँ पे अर्लियर वाला वर्ड नहीं आता. ओके, अर्लियर वाला वर्ड क्यों नहीं आता? बिकॉज these are the due dates. Due dates are basically the end date, right? So for example, if I'm collecting fees from you all for exam, okay, some your exam is going to be somewhere around 20th of April, fine, and to give that exam you'll have to pay me fees by 15th April, correct? So 15th April becomes the due date. Agree? 15th April becomes the due date. मतलब आप 10 अप्रैल को भरो या 5 अप्रैल को भरो या 12-13 अप्रैल को भरो, but 15th April तक आपको डेट एक्सटेंड किया जाए. So there is no word called earlier over here, right? So the last date is what this date is. तो ये डेट आपका एकदम सबसे एंड वाला डेट है, लास्ट डेट है, उसके अंदर आपका इनवॉइस इशू हो जाना चाहिए. ओके, सो नंबर 1, बिफोर प्रोविजन ऑफ सर्विस, सर्विस प्रोवाइड करने के पहले, ऑलराइट, और within 30 days or 45 days. So what are these 30 days and 45 days? 30 days is basically for normal business and 45 for banking, insurance and non-banking financial corporations. So if it's a bank and providing service, then 30 days के अंदर they have to issue the, 45 days के अंदर they have to issue the invoice. But if it's a common, if it's some sort of a tax consultancy or any other management consultancy or HR or labor or any other such service, then 30 days तक का time we can take and 30 days के अंदर हम invoice issue कर सकते हैं. Coming to the other part where a service basically comes to an end, cessation of service or supply of services. So basically when the time when the supply ceases, that is the time when the supply comes to an end, that becomes the most appropriate time when you are supposed to draw the invoice. Then continuous supply. So continuous supply maybe यहाँ पर we are going to use the criteria of payment, all right. So if the due date of payment is ascertainable, मतलब अगर आपको पता है कि आपको पैसा कब मिलने वाला है ये पर्टिकुलर एक्टिविटी से, then on or before the date of such payment. तो payment मिलने के time पे या तो payment मिलने के पहले आप invoice issue कर सकते हैं. All right. Now, if the due date of such payment is not ascertainable, if you don't know, see, basically there can be services which are very fluctuationary, which are very much fluctuating, right? If I talk about water supply जो होता है, water मतलब not the BMC water which we get, all right, pipeline through, but the container में जो water आता है, bottles में जो bottle आता है, those can be, that can be a separate category under goods. But if I talk about electricity, fine, or if I talk about some other refreshment type of service, तो चाय आ रहा है, ऐसा कुछ services है, then yes, you never know when whether the payment date is ascertainable or not. Yes, if it is coming from any board, for example, electricity आता है from BST, right? So they have a board for it. So date is definitely confirmed in this case because हर एक customer का एक due date होता है and वो due date के अंदर they have to pay the money, correct? But if you talk about a simple चाय वाला service or refreshment service जहाँ पे one पूरा month का food you have done स्वाहा and end में you are going to pay them money on some particular date. So here apparently payment, the right payment date will not be visible. हमें पता नहीं होगा. So during such cases, it's on or before the receipt of such payment. So पैसा मिलने के पहले या पैसा मिलते वक्त आपको ये particular invoice issue करना पड़ेगा. The third one is payment is linked to completion of an event. So here it can again be a kind of a service where there is some sort of an action happening, where there is a continuous work being happening and ऐसा काम जो time लेने वाला है. Let's take example of a website maintenance. Fine. So website maintenance is something which doesn't get done in 1 day or 2 days. It takes a lot of time. आपको bugs निकालने पड़ते हैं. Then you'll have to fix some codings. You have to do a lot of analytical work, right? So it takes a lot of time. So during such scenario, when your event is subject to completion, it's on or before completion of that event. तो जैसे आपका event समाप्त होने आता है, उसके पहले या तो जैसे आपका इवेंट खत्म होता रहेगा या हो जाएगा वो टाइम पे आपको इनवॉइस इशू करना पड़ता है. जब आपका इवेंट चल रहा है, इवन दैट टाइम यू कैन इशू द इनवॉइस. सो देयर इज नो प्रॉब्लम इन इशूइंग इनवॉइस. बट यस, the invoice should be issued before completion or before finishing of that particular event. So agar samjho I'm providing web services or website building or website maintenance services, so here I'll have to make sure that the day before which I'll be completing the entire work, the event was what the work is, right? I have to issue the invoice. Agar main late